Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I know a lot of people have discussed over time, but I think it's really worth my 2 cents on it, and that's going to be mistakes I made when I first started out. Not even just when I started out, to be honest, mistakes I've made for the last couple of years as I've been growing, as I've been learning the craft, and maybe a few things that I've still done until recently. So this video will be a little bit cathartic for me in terms of getting out the things that I have done wrong, and it will also be a great learning curve for people that are new, people that are learning this kind of videography stuff, to get some tips and tricks of things, well, to watch out for and to maybe avoid doing. Before we get into that, I'm going to show you something non-video related, which I think you're all going to love, so let's cut to that. I hope you all enjoyed that little interlude. We do have a new member of the family. She is a guide dog, so we will have her for about a year and then she'll go and get trained, and it really is a great cause and helping people that need it. So look into them and support that charity. Without any further ado, let's get straight into the video. So here is number one thing I probably did towards the start of filming that I wish I hadn't done, or that I've stopped doing since. Number one. Now, straight off the bat, this one's a little bit tricky because you will get some differing advice on this topic. Whilst we were at university studying, one of the things that we were taught was about documentary filmmaking and how to kind of make sure you've got enough coverage. And one of the things you were always very worried about was the risk of undershooting. And this is something that's definitely transferred and carried on as I've grown and as I've done more and more different things in videography and filmmaking. You are always a little bit scared that you're not going to get enough, that you're going to not have the shot, that you're going to not have an angle to cut to, you're not going to have a safety or whatever it may be. And I think because of that, a lot of starter filmmakers shoot way more than they need. Now look, if you're doing it for safety, if you've got the time, you've got the money, you're not around rented kit, clearly you can shoot more than you need, but you do have to bear in mind the amount of extra work this does create for you later. I think if it's a creative project like, you're doing a documentary or you're making a short film, then I think there's absolutely scope to kind of overshoot and just kind of make sure you've got more than enough options. But when you're working on client work, there is often time constraints, and editing turnaround can be a real issue. In the first couple of years of me kind of learning this, one of the things I really started doing was streamlining my process when I was actually shooting. This meant not shooting too much more than I need and making sure I wasn't coming away with hundreds and hundreds of gig of stuff I was never going to use. Now again, I appreciate that that's a risky thing to tell someone, as if you don't get enough, then you might not have the shot that you need. But all I'm saying to do is streamline the process and break it down to what you actually need, and don't necessarily go and shoot a ton more than that. One of the things that really helps with this process is to make sure you are doing your real pre-production planning. If you go into a project with a shot list or even just a really good idea of what you need, it really helps you not overshoot, and it really helps you not just be kind of shooting stuff for the sake of it. For client work, I like to get to a shoot with a shot list, or at least a written down idea of the shots I'm going to need on that day. Those are the key shots. That is what the client wants. That's what they've asked for. And as long as I get those shots, I know I'll be safe. If I don't have more time left on the shoot, or there's just, downtime where I can do something else, of course I'll go and get extra shots and I'll get more footage, so I can build up more different things in the video. But again, if there's going to be time constraints in the edit, or if it's going to be a client that wants the video turned around in a certain time frame, it really is helpful to know, okay, I've got this much footage, this is the footage I need, let's use it all. Rather than sifting through an edit and going, okay, well, 1 in every 10 shots or 10 takes I'm going to use. So yes, that one is definitely dependent on what type of shoot it is, but if you don't need much more, don't necessarily get it, you'll be fine. Okay, so tip number 2. This is one that I think every videographer or filmmaker struggles with, and it's definitely something I still struggle with now, but be careful not to buy excessive gear and loads of accessories that you're never going to use. I think these days, as cameras get smaller and we're getting better sensors, higher resolution, and all the things you need inside a very small body, the need for buying loads and loads of different bits of kit is getting smaller and smaller. I'm just going to jump in really quickly with something really interesting. Whilst we're talking about gear, in 3 or 4 years now of semi-professional and professional video that I've done, I have never once, not even once, been asked to produce a video in 4K. So for all the talk of resolution and how good cameras are and stuff, bear in mind that clients often don't understand that stuff and don't care, especially at the lower level. So don't get too focused on it. Now, this is great because it means you can do the job, you can get the video you want with less kit. I think a trap that I often fell into was to think, okay, well, if I have more accessories, if I have more different ways of doing this, then it's going to become a better product or make better quality video. But the reality was, a lot of the time, you are on time constraints. If you're working with clients, you are going to be on 9 to 5 or a certain amount of hours, however many it is. And if your setup is going to take an hour to set up because you've got 15 different accessories getting added on top of the rig, especially when a lot of them are not really essential to do the job, 9 times out of 10 you're just going to not do them. You'll take them to the shoot, you'll have loads of bags or a really heavy bag, you'll get there and you'll go, well, actually the camera is good enough and it's got a mic on, so let's go. Now, again, this is not to say don't do your research or don't look into other options, because, you know, there are things I've bought over the years which, you know, perhaps were smaller sort of accessory type things that have been used all the time and that have been absolutely pivotal to the work I do. For example, the cage I've got around my camera is an excellent tool for filmmakers. It just means you can rig different things to the camera, you know, and if you are kind of scaling up, if you are using monitors, microphones, and all the other accessories that I've just told you not to buy, you can attach them to your camera much more easily, and you can just build up a higher quality rig. But just looking through my camera bag now, I've got adapters, I've got filters, I've got all sorts of cloths and cleaning materials. I've got about 15 different arms to attach things to, and various bits of shoulder rig equipment and stuff, which I never ever use. So be sparing when you're buying stuff, assess a purchase, go back again, don't buy it straight away, and just kind of ask yourself, is this gonna make my job easier, or is it gonna make it harder? And if the answer's harder, 9 times out of 10, just don't buy it. So moving on to number 3. Now, again, this is one that's quite generic and that every single filmmaker past a certain point will tell you, but this tip is audio is king. It's so often so overlooked at the lower level, and you know, we've all been guilty of it, but you have to make sure your audio quality is up to scratch, or you're not gonna be able to work at the level that you probably want to. If you turn in client work and you know the video is great, you've got 4K resolution, 6K resolution, you've got all these different shots and it looks fantastic, but the audio is crap and you can't really hear what the person's saying, they are gonna notice, they're not gonna come back to you, and it's not going to progress you in terms of getting bigger clients. Now, the absolute best thing I ever bought to kind of help this situation is a lav mic set. I've got the Rode Wireless Go, it attaches straight into the camera. I don't have to worry about sync. I can put it on someone. It kind of stays the same level as long as no one's shouting. And it makes it so easy to mic someone up and get really good quality audio, even outside, even if it's bad weather. Obviously, there's a million different ways of getting audio. If you've got a second person, you can get a shotgun microphone on a boom pole, but always bear in mind your mic needs to be as close as it physically can to the subject. Just as a little bonus tip as well, I've seen far too many people with microphones on top of the camera, you know, 5-6 feet back, if not more, expecting it's going to be good audio. Just because your microphone's pointed in the same direction as your subject doesn't mean it's going to pick up the sound, the quality that you want. It needs to be as close as physically possible. And if your shot's too wide that you can't get a boom pole in there, that's when a lav microphone is really kind of perfect. Also, if you're a young filmmaker, put the feelers out now for sound engineers and sound operators. There is probably nothing more pivotal you can have, and you don't have to ever buy, than just a person that you know that operates sound equipment professionally. Trust me, if you're on a finance shoot and you've got the money to do it, just hire a sound engineer, forget about sound, let them do it. It will make your videography 10 times better. So yeah, sound is important, don't forget about it. Moving on to number 4. I'm conscious that I don't want to make this a list of kit you should buy after just telling you not to go out and buy loads of kit, but similar to sound, one thing that's really often overlooked at the lower level is lighting. Again, if you're looking at purchases, rather than buying a new flashy lens or a more expensive camera, you'd be much better off investing in a set of LEDs. But one thing, and I mean this very seriously, make sure you purchase softboxes. It is an absolute pet peeve of mine when people set up LED lights in front of a subject with no softbox. It looks awful, it creates contrasty, harsh shadows. You can often see the shadow on the back wall, and it's a really amateur look. So if you're gonna buy lights, buy softboxes. But yeah, lighting makes a huge difference. It will make your camera look way better. So even if you're shooting on a slightly, you know, smaller budget camera, if you have good lighting, it will make your shots look better anyway. I guarantee a good lighting setup will make your subject and your shot look a million times better than buying £1,000 more expensive a lens. And similar to the audio, it's something that everyone forgets at first. And you know, it took me a year or two to really kind of invest in some decent lighting equipment. But nowadays, if I'm going on a shoot and I know that I'm getting an interview or there's going to be a subject that's talking to camera, if that's indoors, even sometimes if it's outdoors, I'm taking the light set. I'm just gonna show you a quick example of the lighting in this room without this softbox on, and I'll show you the softbox as well so you can really see what I mean. So I've literally not changed any settings on my camera. I've just turned off the softbox and I've turned off the blue light that I had filling in the background. I mean, honestly, this looks absolutely awful, and I think if this was the quality that you turn into a client as opposed to the other thing, it's gonna be very, very noticeable. I'm just gonna quickly show you it without a softbox as well, because I said that makes a massive difference. Okay, so clearly this is not a great example. This is the LED in my hand, but you are seeing how much difference it makes not having a softbox on the light. This is harsh light, you're getting horrible shadows on my face. It's not really illuminating the background. Yes, it's a different light, but you see the point anyway. So moving on to our last tip, number 5. This one's gonna be a little bit businessy and a little bit more about the financial side of being a videographer. And again, this is something I've had to consider a lot over the years, and it's something that does change depending on the shoots, as most of these things do. But my 5th tip is gonna be, if you want to be a videographer that goes out and shoots on your own, then you need to set up your kit and you need to buy the right kit so that you can actually do it on your own. One of the really key things I've learned is that when working on, you know, smaller budget client work where you've got, you know, small businesses whether it's theatres, companies, whatever it may be. When you're doing smaller work that doesn't have a massive budget, you can still make a good living off it if you're getting that money directly. But the problem really comes in when you have to split that money between a few different people because you're getting multiple people on the job to work. Now, this is definitely something that I've had to learn over the years. I used to be a videographer as a team with a good friend of mine, Sam Birch. And one of the main reasons that we decided to stop working together was because it was difficult financially. We were doing work at the same level. So, you know, let's say we're making sort of £300, £400 for a bit of work, but it had to be halved. It was going between two people. And it made the financial part of being a videographer really quite difficult. Now look, I get it, if you're doing a bigger scale production where there's more budget involved, if you can get that work, then you absolutely need a team, you absolutely need more people coming in, doing different roles. You need someone on sound, someone on lighting, someone on camera, etc., etc. But if you're just starting out and you want to be doing these kind of, you know, smaller budget things where you're just getting work through the door and kind of, you know, working on your videography skills and growing your client base, it can be really, really beneficial to be able to do it on your own. This ties in quite nicely with a lot of my other tips, as to be honest, a lot of the purchases that I've done over the years and things that I've bought have been to make myself self-sufficient. By that I mean having a simple and easy to use audio system, you know, lavalier mic, wireless microphones, etc., etc. A fairly lightweight lighting system that I can put in a big bag and take somewhere if I need to, and a few other bits and bobs that just let me kind of operate on my own. For example, a couple of years ago, I purchased an Atomos Ninja 5 recorder. I know it's not cheap, but again, it allows me to do more things on my own as I've got a monitor that I can properly see. I can properly monitor the video whilst I'm working, a lot better than I can just on the camera. And again, it allows me to do a little more on my own. So whilst I think this industry is absolutely collaborative, and I think at a higher pay grade, you're absolutely going to be working on teams, and that's the way to go. I do think if you're kind of starting out, you should at least consider whether or not this is something that you can do on your own. Don't get me wrong, there are downsides. It's not quite as fun working on your own. It's hard to be creative sometimes. It's hard to do the self-motivation, etc., etc. But financially, it is going to be a lot more beneficial, obviously, as there's no one to split the cost to. And at an early level in your career, that can be the difference between, you know, doing this for a living and not. So yeah, consider whether or not you would like to work on your own. Consider whether or not you've got the kit to do it, or you could get the kit to do it. And consider a few easy things you can buy to mean you don't need to bring that extra person on your shoot every single time. So those have been my 5 tips today. I hope those have been helpful for you. I think there's definitely some interesting things there that I kind of learned over the years, you know, some of which I only learned more recently. I'm not suggesting this is all stuff that's gone way in the past, but I think a few of these tips can really help some, you know, first-time filmmakers or people that are kind of learning to be videographers and want to do this, you know, at least partially for a career. So I hope you have enjoyed that, and I look forward to seeing you at some point in the future when I get around to making more videos in between all the million other things I'm doing at the moment. And before we go, I'm just going to show you a few more clips of this very, very cute puppy. See you later.